Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and on today's episode I'm going to speak about divinity and divine consciousness and do a little bit of contrasting that with the religious programming that most of us have been subjected to here, submerged within this time and place. And also, I usually stay away from world events, however, or cosmic, astrological events. There's a lot that's going on right now, and it absolutely is having an impact on consciousness and on our journey. So I'm going to speak about that right now. Okay, so we find ourselves submerged here within this predominantly Judeo-Christian world, even though there is a large portion of the world in the Far East that espouses Hinduism or the Buddhist philosophy. It is necessary to recognize that a lot of the expectations that are in people's either conscious or unconscious minds are coming from the programming of the Bible, and to look at the Bible as a type of software program. Sorry, just waiting for that little plane to go by. I'm outside in my garden. That the Bible is a type of software program, and that the intention of running that program to its final conclusion is at the end of the program, your consciousness will be uploaded to a type of artificial realm, and that its intention is not actually freedom. Now, I am not here in order to insult anybody or offend you on a religious sense. Please look at the information that I'm sharing with you from my perspective. I'm definitely coming from the outsider viewpoint, a person who did not originate within this culture, yet who has come here and been submerged and is able to analyze from the first-person experience what is going on and compare that, like comparing two templates. What is here compared to the truth that I know and I am not submerged within this time and place. So it is my understanding that the Bible and most of this religious programming is intended to disempower people during their life and lead to, upon death, afterlife, instead of the free flowing of your consciousness going on its trajectory, going on its journey, that your consciousness would be stuck like in a little whirlpool, just spinning around in circles and never actually go where it needs to go. And that's not the intention for your consciousness. Our consciousnesses are just like energy, or just like electrons flowing in a wire, which is how most humans think of energy, like electricity flowing in a copper wire. And if you don't allow that electricity to flow, it dissipates. And this is the whole idea, that we are part of a network of consciousness. And it's a network of consciousness that pervades everything, all matter and all energy. Wait, I should qualify that, because it pervades everything except for the things that it does not pervade, because there is certainly the quality of lack of consciousness. So not to bring the conversation into duality, because the whole idea of the flying rainbow lasagna is the invention of the next highest level of reality where we resolve all of this duality. And that's what Birth of a New Dimension is. I named this show that name on purpose, and it's been almost 2 years that I've been doing this show. And it's also referring to a painting that I painted that took many years to paint, that I completed last year, that shows the it depicts the events of what we will experience as we are bringing together the formerly divergent realms of spirit or energy or consciousness and matter. That we've been taught to perceive the world as bifurcated into these two realms, the realm of objects and things and stuff that we can touch and perceive with our five senses, and the realm of mind or consciousness or our viewpoint, our perspective, our awareness, our hopes and our dreams and our passions and everything that's quote unquote inside of us. All the things that you can't photograph with a camera. All the things that science cannot presently measure, like how much does your imagination weigh? You can't measure that. It is not recognized by science. However, imagination is very, very real. It's one of I like to say, the strongest muscle on your body. Imagination is one of the higher faculties, where it's tied in with your heart and your unconditional love, which is like a generator in your body. And it's also tied in with higher consciousness, or our connection to, when I say divine, I'm not speaking about Lord Jehovah of the Bible. I'm speaking about an abstraction, a consciousness that is like the totality consciousness, the everything that everything adds up to. And I would say it's the source, and it's also the destination. So it's the person or being that created us and that nourishes us and guides us through our life. This doesn't mean vocally. This does not mean through verbalization at all. In fact, language is a virus that has been inserted into our hacked operating system, the operating system known as the human mind, but which was not actually created by humans. And language is part of the mechanisms or impediments that separate our consciousness from the seamless continuum of energy. That instead of perceiving the world as a seamless continuum of energy, like here's the end of my eyeball, here's my cornea, here's the air, here's a photon coming to my eyeball through the air, there's actually no separation, there's actually no distinction between yourself and the context within which you are submerged. Or I use this example all the time. I'm out here in my garden, I'm not wearing any shoes. There's my epidermis. There's a layer of fungi and yeasts that live on the outside of my epidermis. My toe is touching the soil. There's a layer of fungi and all sorts of spores that live on the surface of the soil, and then I'm touching earth. There is literally no distinction between myself and earth. This is also true of consciousness. And now we're starting to get into interdimensional ethics. So literally, we are connected to a sea of consciousness, or you could call it an ocean of awareness. And you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool, and everything that you emit affects others, and everything that others emit also affects you. So it's very similar to if you've ever seen an experiment with many different metronomes, the little ticking wands that count the time, like if you're playing piano or whatever. If you set up a whole array of those on something like a table, and some of them are going fast and some of them are going slow, eventually they all synchronize. And the ones that are going faster slow down. They give their energy to the ones that are going slower. And all of this happens through the energy transference of like the mechanical surface of the actual table. So all of the metronomes are connected through the surface of the table. And it's not just magic that they all synchronize. All of our consciousnesses are connected through an invisible network of consciousness that science cannot perceive or measure, yet which is real. And this invisible network of consciousness means that what you are thinking and feeling inside of yourself is absolutely affecting the other people that are conscious, matter that also contains levels of consciousness, and the entire cosmos and all timelines. So I use the analogy quite often that our bodies are like instruments and we are like musicians. and we need to tune our bodies. What happened to the physical structure of our bodies, our genetic tendencies, our genetic structures, is that about 10 or 20,000 years ago, the weaving pattern of our genes was changed. The behavior pattern of our genes was changed. And it diminished human consciousness. It also diminished human health and vitality. It was the invention of disease. It was the invention of death. Before that degradation of the pattern of the human genome, we lived in what the Bible describes as the Garden of Eden, a state of bliss, a state of mental and physical bliss, perfectly at ease, perfectly comfortable, in a state of total health, in a state of total mental peace. There was no distinction between the source of consciousness and the containers for consciousness in the physical realm. That was the intention for these bodies. So when people, young people or old people, ask these difficult questions like, why is disease created? Why did God make disease? Why did God make death? Why do people grow old and decrepit and die? Why do some young people get diseases like babies born with brain cancer? Why does God do that? These are really, really good questions. And I encourage everyone to apply their mind, apply your critical thinking skills to everything that's going on right now. I said I was going to speak also about current events, a little bit astronomical and astrological, because astrological meaning referring to the cycles of time, referring to the myths and legends that inform the movements of the stars and the zodiac. And what is happening right now is the denouement, or the end of a cycle, or harmonic waves or patterns of consciousness are interacting, and these are long waves. Like, imagine a wave that might take thousands and thousands of years, much longer than recorded human history, and much longer than, what a human lifespan could be imagined to be. Well, I say imagined to be because I like to say, in the antediluvian world, in that world that the Bible describes as the Garden of Eden, people did not age. People, human beings in human physical containers, lived so closely to the source of consciousness, or were so divine. And divine, I define as the cells of the body and the consciousness of the occupant conforming to the pattern of consciousness that flows in the cosmos. It's like being a really good musician who never plays the wrong note. That is being divine, all right? And the beings that lived before the genetic code was degraded or squashed were divine. They were excellent musicians. They never played a wrong note. Nobody died. Dying is like falling off the tightrope. Everybody walked the tightrope of life perfectly. It was simply what one did, like de rigueur. It is just how everyone does it. And it was only with the invasion of consciousness and the reduction of the functionality of the human genome that death was created or invented. And it was also the invention of disease. So now we have to understand, this is why I say very often, death is the aberration, or the thing that is not supposed to exist. And ascension is the primary intention and is the inevitability. When I say ascension, I am not referring to the literalist, biblical, Christian rapture. And a lot of people in what is being called the New Age community, in the community of thinkers at this time, bloggers and teachers and spiritual writers, this idea of defining ascension as a literal, like, being floated upwards. It might take in the literal Christian rapture, it's the idea of going up into heaven, which would be in the sky. And in a more recent interpretation of that, people are being influenced by religion even if they are not practicing Christians or Jews. And Judaism has a long tradition of Messianic Judaism, which is the idea of a savior at the end of time. And that's what I'm talking about, that we are submerged in these belief systems. Whether you are secular or a practicing religious person, these belief systems affect our expectations. So many New Age writers also speak about the idea of ascension as being taken away, leaving this place and going somewhere else. And it might be going to onboard a UFO or going to an alternate dimension. And I would like to say to you that we don't have to trash what is here. We can fix and upgrade what is here. So the idea is, ascension does not necessarily mean leaving or going somewhere else. It is my understanding that ascension means transforming one's level of energy and transforming one's level of consciousness. And this might also necessitate leaving your present dimension, or leaving your present lifestyle, or leaving your present social and economic context and going somewhere else. However, it is not defined by the act of leaving. It is defined by the act of transforming your consciousness and the cells of your body. So I've spoken about this before. Upon death, what happens is the consciousness leaves the physical body, and the physical body goes through a state change, goes from solid into a different state. And if it decomposes, then it goes into like liquefaction, putrefaction, it goes kind of liquidy, and then eventually it becomes emanated as infrared, it becomes emanated as heat, it becomes eaten as consciousness of tiny animals, or if we go into cremation, it's an almost instantaneous state change from solid matter into plasma and heated gas. And this is the whole idea of releasing energy. We understand from Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, that there's a relationship between matter and energy, that matter represents a lot of stored up energy. So our bodies, your physical body is your own. This is big, this is huge, because there are so many also teachings about opening yourself up to some kind of otherworldly being, letting them come inside of you and inhabit you. And I am really advocating right now for everyone to have very strong boundaries, to be very skeptical, to be very choosy about who you interact with on a level of consciousness, about who you allow into your body. And when I say into your body, I mean into your system of perception, exploring your energy centers, feeling or acting through you or speaking through you, and also inhabiting your genes. Because this is also pretty big. Your genes are like a library of consciousness, and it is possible to have unwanted hitchhikers following along in your genetic code, in your pattern, that are, like I said, not welcome. They are not welcome visitors. These are not like beautiful, finely crafted consciousnesses that are adding to your life. These are horribly twisted and distorted consciousnesses that don't have someplace better to go. And they're like, we're going to get inside of you. And this is what's been happening with humanity for all of what is recorded human history. Humans have been trying to fly with huge boulders tied to their ankles. And it's not you, it's the boulders. This is really, really big and huge. So, what I am referring to now in terms of astronomical, astrological events, don't want you to interpret as, quote unquote, the end of the world, or the biblical eschaton, the apocalypse, the what is described that will happen at the end of time. Because even if you're not a practicing Christian person, a lot of people, they kind of get religion at the end. And I told you that I look at religion on earth right now as a long con. That means a con game that was started at the inception of human civilization and culture, like 10,000 years ago, and that has been percolating through up until this point. It's been set up because what is happening right now, there are cosmic circumstances. The coming together of spirit and matter are part of the inevitability. Like I said, there is an inevitability to ascension. It is part of the structure of what I like to call your time vortex. So the time vortex, I describe this on almost every episode. If I had pencil and paper, I would draw a picture of something that looks kind of like a triangle or a pyramid, but has sloped concave sides and has a bunch of vertical parallel lines. And one of the lines in the very center continues from the base of the pyramid all the way up through its vertex and continues into infinity. And this is literally the shape of your time body. It's the shape of your structure of your possibilities and probabilities and the non-physical aspects of yourself. It's part of the part of you that we can't photograph with a camera, and that science cannot weigh or measure or recognize, yet is a very real part of you. So of all of those parallel lines that reach upward, quote unquote, from the base to the vertex, the longest one, the one that goes and continues onward through the little wormhole at the vertex up there, that is the ascension pathway. or the path of least likelihood. Least likelihood because if we look at the entire bundle of timelines, like from the top down, it would look like imagine a bundle of drinking straws or something like that. The ones that are around the periphery, there's a lot of those. But there's only one that is at the very, very center. This is the core. It's the core timeline. And it's who you really are. It's, for each one of us, it is the true essence of who we really are. And everything that is around it to the periphery, that's all the side dishes. The entree, the meat of the meal, the real nourishment, who you really are, meaning your core values, your core characteristics, who you are as a person, is contained in that central timeline. And when you are distorted, you occupy the periphery. That's not who you really are. The further you get from that core timeline, the more distorted you get, the less like your true self you are able to behave. And sometimes you're not able to behave like your true self because of physical characteristics. Like if we took all of the volume of blood out of your veins and arteries and put it in a big bucket next to you, you would not be able to act like your true self because, you need blood flowing through your body in order to make that happen. So sometimes you die not because you're a bad person, but because you've been exposed to a disease or a chemical or, an axe murderer or a chainsaw or something like that. Your body has been disarranged, not just that you're a bad person and you developed something, internally, or you made some kind of decision to get ill. Again, we're getting away from all of these blame the victim mentalities because as people have been growing, like over the past 2 decades or so, as people have been growing in consciousness, there is a movement for people to take more personal responsibility, and I applaud that. That means to say your body is your manifestation of your thought structure. And if you have a disease, it's because of the way you've been thinking and behaving and eating and doing. However, it's really inappropriate. Like if a little child is born with brain cancer and they're a couple of months old, they've had hardly any amount of time to think and do and achieve consequences as a result of that. So then we really have to look at something else that is going on here and to understand we're in a one-room schoolhouse. It's supposed to be a perfect mirror reflection where what you send out comes back to you without distortion. But what is actually happening is it's a fun house. And we are surrounded by highly distorted mirrors or reflective surfaces that are, some of them gobble up light and they don't send anything back. Some of them send it back, but only in a distorted or diminished entropic or entropy, a diminished entropic form. And some of them send it back, with perfect amounts, but just delayed. And all of that means that people have trouble learning. It's supposed to be a direct cause and effect in life. You do this, you experience this. You do this, and then this happens as the result. When there are delayed results or distorted results or results that never actually come back, it's like being a bat trying to fly with echolocation and not getting clear signals. And this has everything to do with what's going on with the sun. So the sun sends out photons. Photons are feelers. Photons are little particles of consciousness, and we are part of that. Our consciousness is part of this stream of photons. This is what I mean. You're in a continuum. There's no distinction between the sun and the stream of photons that are coming to you and yourself and your body, and then all of the energy that you are emitting. It's all energy. It's all this stream of photons. What is different is the speed at which the light is moving. So the photons that are coming off of the sun are moving at a slightly different speed than the matter of your physical body. Ascension is taking the matter, the condensed energy of your physical body, and raising its frequency until it is much closer to the non-physical substance that we're familiar with, the phenomenon of light. If when you do this kind of thing, you don't live like a regular person anymore. You're not going to go shopping at Bed Bath & Beyond. You have different needs after you do this type of transformation. So the idea is, it's not like, ascension or rapture, we're going to be lifted up and go somewhere else. It's like this. We are all in this process of transformation, including the planet and including physical matter. And this is a realization, again, I share these realizations as I'm having them. I don't even take time to really digest and percolate and think and hem and haw all about it. The idea or the concept that the transformation of matter is not just something that is affecting our little planet, that it affects matter everywhere. It's profound. And matter, like this, comes from the root word that is the same or similar to our word for mother. The idea that the material world, or this level of physical density, is the parent for our consciousness, that it gave us a certain level of nourishment and opportunity, just like our physical mothers do, in helping us to develop in the womb and then nourishing us when we are little tiny children and too little to care for ourselves. That this is what the material world has done for our consciousness. It has been like a womb where we could reside and grow and learn and be nourished until the point that we are ready to go away from our mother. And that's the idea of going away from the material world. Does not necessarily mean going away from Earth, like in a clank metal spaceship. This is literalism. Let's get away from literalism and let's really understand this on a non-anthropomorphic level, on the level of pure empirical abstraction. Because there are a lot of problems on Earth, Earth's social structure, Earth's ecosystem, Earth's economy. I understand that there's a lot of, people have a desire for escapism. They're like, flying saucer, take me away. I got to get out of this place. I like Pete Seeger, what he said. He said that the place gets better by participation. Don't tune in, turn on, and drop out. He said this during the 1960s when there was a movement for people to just experience a interior psychedelic revolution. To turn on, tune in, drop out. He actually said that society and the world gets better when you actually participate. And I really agree with that, and I live that truth by actually being here. I am here in a physical body as a musician with an instrument, and what I am doing with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is retuning my instrument. And the good news is that that affects all of the other instruments in this band, and there's lots of other people that are also retuning their instruments in order to create more harmonic and beautiful music. This is what birth of a new dimension is. This is what is happening right now. And it's part of cosmic events. I sometimes joke, like cosmic egg timer, like ding, your time is up. But time is up does not refer to apocalypse or end of days. There's so many different videos. I watch videos on YouTube as anyone does. And there are a lot of people that are sharing this idea, consciously or unconsciously, that we must all experience destruction in order to experience renewal. And I keep sharing through my little radio show here the idea that no, we do not have to burn down and totally destroy our house in order to then rebuild it into a more lovely mansion. That we can actually renovate while we are occupying it. To me, this is what my understanding of the process of ascension is. It is a refinement of your own consciousness in as an individual and then as a collective with others and in conjunction with the planet until you are able to occupy or function at the next highest level of reality. So all of this is based on merit. It's not based on like whether you're a good boy or a good girl or a good dog, like being patted on the head. It's more like, did you do the exercises? If you did the exercises and you did the training, then you can run the marathon. If you didn't build the muscles, if you didn't do your exercises, if you never tried, then you don't have the capacity to run the marathon. And I know everybody wants to know, what happens if you can't run the marathon? What's going to happen? Like, there's good people, there's malevolent people, there's people that are kind of somewhere in between. What happens to all of these people? Yes, it is a one-room schoolhouse. So we exist in this reality right now where there are a variety of people at different levels of development. And it's not appropriate to say that a kindergartner should jump directly to graduate school. There's a lot of integument that must be first filled in before that can possibly happen. And if you do that, then you're kind of undermining the structure of the entire educational process. So then we can understand that the events that we're experiencing submerged in time right now are all about refining consciousness and, let's say, making distinctions between different levels of consciousness, just like if you've ever done one of those old-fashioned science experiments with levels of density, pouring things like water and alcohol and vinegar and different density liquids into a beaker, and then seeing how they create stratification. So part of the experiences that we've been here having on Earth submerged in time for about the past decade and a half have been all about that stratification of consciousnesses, and people having the experiences that can help them to refine their consciousness, but also to display what level of awareness you are presently residing at. So part of it is you've had 15 years in order to cultivate your muscles and, learn to be a marathon runner. And part of it is also during that 15 years, there's been a stratification of people who are running and training every day and moving in the direction that they need to move, and then other levels of people that are not. And so then it is appropriate to say, what is going to happen to all of these different people at all of these different levels of awareness? So consciousness is not discarded. This is a very big thing. But this is also about planetary ascension, the idea that even if you're the worst, most evil, malevolent murderer or the worst maniac in the world, that you're still going to ascend. That's like saying if you never put on running shoes, ever, sat on the couch eating junk food all day long, that at the end of your life you're going to run a marathon. It doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. The cultivation of consciousness has not occurred. So then that person that does not have the capacity to raise their energy to these higher levels of consciousness and occupy this new level of reality will be in a different level of reality. None of this is about punishment and reward. That's all this biblical literalism. Good people go to heaven and bad people are punished in hell. It's not supposed to be like that at all. It is really supposed to be about what you have earned and what you achieved through your own merit. So also a lot of this has to do with the ascension process and whether or not you need technology or any kind of money to make it happen. I mean, yes, we all need to have a stable place to live and food and resources and medical care. That is absolutely necessary. You need to support the physical in order to cultivate the spiritual to this level. So it's not appropriate to say, you're going to ascend, therefore you don't need your food anymore. Stop going to the grocery store and buying nutritious, good food. No, actually, you're going to need to eat a whole lot of nutritious, good food. This is not about denying or hating the physical. And I feel like for a long time on Earth, that it has been the program. That the ego has been hated and reviled, and that the physical world has been looked at as a world that is by definition inadequate or distorted or just inherently unright in some way. And this is the, religious interpretation of the world as being the devil's playground. And all of this goes back to ancient Egypt. So the Christian literalist interpretation is that the realm of the afterlife, heaven, is the realm that is ruled by Jesus, and that the physical realm is ruled by Satan. And this goes back to ancient Egypt with the myth of Osiris and Set. That Osiris is kind of like the Atlantean myth and culture, a beautiful immortal being who was cut down by the invaders from Mars, and that is represented by Seth. And that after Osiris was put back together and wrapped up in bandages like a mummy and revivified, the gods of the Hall of Mat, or order and balance, they said, technically you're dead and you can't rule over the land of the living, so you now rule over the netherworld. And then the physical realm became the arena for the constant conflict of Seth or Set versus Horus, who is Osiris's son. So this is the idea that goes very far back, that matter is inherently flawed, that there is something inherently wrong with the physical world and with being here in the physical realm. So matter is not inherently flawed. Matter is light that is slowed down to a level of density that is in the physical realm. Matter becomes flawed or acts in a distorted way or behaves in this monstrous way when it is cut off from the consciousness of spirit or this divine source. Or it's like saying the matter is not organized by the organizing principle of this pattern of energy and consciousness as it flows. The paintings that I paint, this pattern, that's this pattern. It is the pattern that guides and governs all of our life. When we conform to that pattern, we're good musicians playing our finely tuned instrument, we get to be alive. And when we do not conform to that pattern, cellularly or behaviorally or with our consciousness and thoughts, we don't get to be alive. Mostly that means you get to be dead. Mostly it means you get to occupy the membrane of death or the barrier between worlds. In that time vortex structure that I drew with my voice for you, it's the concave surface. It's like a waterfall that flows from the top down to the bottom, and it literally unmakes the ego. When the ego reaches the end of its timeline, it hits this flowing waterfall that is known as death. Death is not a man like a skeleton in a cloak with a giant scythe ready to cut you down. Death is a flowing waterfall of energy. And when you enter into that stream of energy, it unmakes the ego and brings the pure consciousness or the pure needle of your awareness back to the beginning of the song. And you start again and you try the song in a slightly different way. This is like feeling along through blindness. What we are supposed to do, instead of feeling along through blindness, like putting our nose against the membrane of death and then being able to sense that it is there, we are supposed to have activated higher faculties. And the higher faculties are your heart containing unconditional love and everything that rests upon that. So that's truth, which is your capacity to communicate at your throat. Insight, which is at the level of your brow. And this is connecting to Christ consciousness. And let me go into Christ consciousness. And then also there is the crown, which is your connection to the divine or that organizing principle that comes into you. Let's talk now about Christ consciousness, because there are a lot of people, like I've been tapping into the pulse of humanity. What are people thinking and feeling right now? So yes, there are a lot of astronomical anomalies that are visible on sky cams, telescopes, and other ways of sensing the skies beyond the naked eye right now that make many people feel not only fearful or anxious or concerned, but it makes them go into the program of biblical literalism, that this is the end of the world. It's the end of days. It's the end of their life. It's not just the end of your personal life. It's the end of all culture, the end of all society, and that people have an expectation that this is necessary and good. Like you got to eat your dinner before you get to eat your before you get to eat your dessert. Let me say it again, please. You got to eat your vegetables before you get to eat your dessert, okay? So that's the idea. You got to die before you get to go to heaven. I completely do not espouse that or represent that or share that thought with others. I actually embody a totally different truth, and literally it's a truth in my body. Because I've spoken about this before. I know I'm repetitive. It's in case anybody just finds this as like the one broadcast that they listen to. I'm a walk-in. Sorry, it's 36 minutes and I just got into that. But I'm a walk-in. And I understand death from my own personal perspective of what I went through as a walk-in. That death is definitely not the end of consciousness. It's not the end of the trajectory of your journey. So I understand that in this time and place, humans are at a great disadvantage. Most humans are not culturally, socially, or religiously prepared for the journey of the afterlife. Most people are sitting ducks. In ancient Egypt, like Egypt of far antiquity, like even before, more than 5,000 years ago, there were the mystery school traditions. And these were schools where you were initiated, experienced different psychedelic brews that brought you into different mental states, and you were taught and programmed how to astrally project or to get out of your body and, go on like a spiritual walkabout while you were still alive, and also how to act in your afterlife. If you die, how to die. and where to go when you die. And I say if you die because we all have within us that possibility of ascending. And what that really means is that when you go through every single possible iteration, you end up on the timeline that exits the wormhole. And we are right now on Earth's timeline that exits the wormhole. We've spun around in the washing machine enough stupid times that we finally get to get out on this one. And getting out does not necessarily mean that we have to see Earth either destroyed by fireballs from the sky or a nuclear war or invading spaceships or whatever is the social, cultural, and religious program that your particular belief system is running. We don't have to be destroyed in order to be rebuilt. So the former occupant of this body died. The body was not destroyed. And I came into the body through the portal, the genetic oscillating maneuver that I call the flying rainbow lasagna. And the journey continues. The journey is not over. So this is a transformation of consciousness, not an end of consciousness. It's just my personal experience. I'm using it as a template to show you this is what an experience of death can be. Death does not necessarily have to mean physical, literal death and the end of consciousness. Death can mean transformation into a completely new state. And then I would define that as ascension. So it is my understanding that our planet is undergoing ascension. However, that doesn't just affect our little planet. That affects and transforms the entire material world. So when our consciousnesses were degraded, and we came into this state of matter and the physical world where we have to, farm and have cows to eat. And, we're not just eating pure light and living at that level. That had an impact on all the solar system, the cosmos, on everything. It wasn't just our little Earth that was impacted by that. So as we are ascending, reclimbing the genetic ladder, changing the tuning of our instrument so that we are now more in harmony with divine consciousness, we are also similarly having a huge impact on the rest of the cosmos. Earth is not just some backwater place that doesn't matter. We actually matter quite a lot, and the spotlight is on us right now. And what we are doing is creating the antidote. Like you could imagine a little petri dish, a little glass dish, where some aspect of a disease or bacteria has been placed in there. And I want to say beneficial bacteria. Let's say, fighters, like little antidote fighters, come along and fight the disease. And the antidote is cultivated in the petri dish. And then when there's enough of it, you can take that antidote and you can share it with other places that have the same disease. So the disease that we are experiencing here on Earth, this is the disease that results or arises from the genetic invaders. We could say the symptoms of the disease are death and war and lack of consciousness and environmental degradation, like the idea that anybody would harm the planet that we live on in any way in order to get imaginary profit of pieces of paper is totally unconscionable. It is unfathomable. These symptoms are symptoms of a sickness that doesn't just affect our planet, it affects many planets. And I've spoken about this too. Extraterrestrial technology. Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. If you don't know that extraterrestrial intelligence exists, yes, it exists. And there's all sorts of different types of extraterrestrial intelligence. There are all different levels of extraterrestrial intelligence, from the very highest level of intelligence, which I would call the stellar network. This is pure light, pure consciousness. It's consciousness that is at such a highly active level of intensity that if you were exposed to it directly, it would make you change state instantaneously. It would burn you. If we put you on the surface of the sun, you would burn instantaneously. You'd explode, you'd vaporize. And that's because it's too much energy at once. So the idea of ascension is that energy is applied at the right rate, so that your body is transformed from a physical substance into a semi-physical or non-physical or less physical, less dense substance, and which has different properties. And we're all undergoing that transformation. It is up to us. The question of how long does that transformation process take really literally is up to us. It's also part of the cosmic egg timer. You got to get your shoes on. It is time to run the marathon. It is time to run the marathon. So, astrological and cosmic events in the sky. There are a lot of anomalies that are up there. Some people speak about the idea of planet Nibiru. This is from a myth that was translated from Sumerian cuneiform texts about an extraterrestrial civilization that travels on a planet that has a very circuitous orbit and only returns about every 26,000 years. So again, people who are biblical literalists are looking at world events and they're expecting the return of a literal Christ. People who are a bit more esoteric are looking at other ancient texts and they're correlating that with events and they're saying this is the return of planet Nibiru and it means destruction. That it means that our Earth is going to be destroyed physically, and that it means that a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people are afraid of chemtrails, and they're like, Jesus, save us from the chemtrails. A lot of people are afraid of Nibiru, and they're like, Jesus, save us from Nibiru. Or the idea, Earth will be destroyed, and then everyone will be lifted up by Jesus and live safely in heaven. Do not mean to offend anyone, because that is a beautiful ideal. However, your vulnerability is being exploited. Your desire to be saved by an external force, as opposed to taking radical self-responsibility and being empowered. That is the vulnerability, and I'd like to give you the patch code so that you don't have to be exploited by that. You humans, us humans, we who are here in the physical realm, we are gods and goddesses. We are literally divine beings embodied in the flesh. People might look at their bodies and they might be like, I don't like the look of this body part. This isn't pretty. This isn't well-formed. This isn't this. I don't feel so divine. Or, burping and farting or having whatever toenail fungus. I don't feel so divine. Believe me, you are all incredibly divine beings. And it is my understanding that the return of Christ is not a literal return of a man, a physical figure with a beard out of the sky, that it is a return of Christ consciousness. That the human higher psychic faculties have been diminished for about 10 or 15,000 years, and that has left humanity very vulnerable, distorted, and even harmed the planet. And when we retune our instruments and start playing the right notes, part of what we do is get reconnected to the Christ network. So the Christ network has nothing at all to do with the Christian religion. Nothing at all. Christian religion, as it presently stands, is much more representative of the ideals of the Antichrist. Anti-awareness. Christ is literally awareness, it's literally consciousness. It's not something that's just for one particular religion. People who are Hindu can be a part of Christ consciousness. People who are atheist can be a part of Christ consciousness. People who have never had religious training can be a part of Christ consciousness. People who have a genetic abnormality that makes them mentally retarded can be a part of Christ consciousness. This is big. Because if you think that you have to read the Bible and understand it and say, yes, I understand and know who Jesus is in order to get into heaven, you're wrong. There are people who are literally, they have brain damage or congenital defects. They cannot understand the Bible. They cannot read and understand words. They get to go to heaven. They get to go to the ascended state of being. So please do not think, or people who might live in a very undeveloped place, like in a very natural jungle or a forest, who were never exposed to the Bible, who were never exposed to missionaries or anything like that. It's the idea that those people need to be saved. They need to be given the idea of Jesus that's going to come and save them. All of those people get to be on the Christ Consciousness Network, regardless of whether you've ever read the Bible, regardless of whether you've gone to church or been baptized or eaten the Eucharist. So let's get the Christianity, the religiosity, away from Christ consciousness and really speak about it as an aspect of energetic anatomy. What I want to kick everybody's butt here right now and say, please stop waiting for or wishing for an external savior, a man to come out of the sky and rescue you. Please embody your own divinity and join together on a network of consciousness with other people who have already and who are also joining together in their divinity. So we get to be very, very powerful if we are many embodied divine beings here who all help each other out. This is, imagine if you are an artist or a musician or a person who creates anything, like if that is your way of supporting yourself. If you don't have other people who buy your books or CDs or go to your shows or support you, you cannot continue doing what you're doing. And the idea of the Christ Consciousness Network is that anybody who is here embodying their divinity works together with other people who are also embodying their divinity in the sense of business relationships, in the sense of scientific research and achievements, in the sense of social structures, in the sense of creation of food and sharing of food. This is the whole idea that instead of waiting for or looking for an external man with a beard from the sky to come down and save you, what you are supposed to do as individuals is embody your own divinity and join together as a network in order to improve what is here on earth. Earth could be a heavenly place. I sit here in my garden. Sometimes I'm able to look at the insects and the plants and, feel the sun and see the beautiful harmony of everything that is here. And it's in stark contrast to what I read about and, perceive in a less direct sense. For example, things that are going on in terms of pollution of the ecosystem, vaccinations that are polluting human consciousness, or other forms of pharmaceutical pollution of human consciousness. This could be a heavenly realm. However, if you are born into this realm and you're immediately vaccinated with substances that reduce your consciousness permanently, then it becomes a hellish realm. That is how I understand the what people are calling adverse vaccine reaction, the brain damage that some children are experiencing from vaccines. It is the idea that one's consciousness isn't free. Once you get polluted in that way, you're not actually free. You're not free to think and do and expand and grow in the way that you were intended to. So Earth can be transformed into a heavenly place. And this is the real lesson that I learned from my experience. So I'm a walk-in, and in many ways I have interpreted my entire existence as Aurora since October 8th of 2001 as being the afterlife. And I had to learn the rules of the afterlife and how it works, but I really learned that this is very much a mentally created realm, and it can be heavenly or it can be hellish depending upon one's inner mental state and, what you are experiencing here. There are a lot of people that are involved with, substance abuse or drug addiction or withdrawal or things that affect consciousness, diseases like epilepsy or autism. And those people are in a hellish mental state. And those very same people can be transformed and experience a heavenly mental state. It doesn't mean that you lifted them up and moved them to a different house or, scooped them out of their country and sent them to a different country. It means that you transformed their mental state. We each need to transform our mental state. And when people look at what's happening, if there are unexplainable objects in the sky or if there are unexplainable events on Earth, a lot of people go into fear and the expectation of difficulty and expectation of crisis and catastrophe. You know what I always talk about? I always say that you are an artist of reality, and you are using the paintbrush of your imagination in order to create what you need to experience or what you wish to experience. And of course, you're a collaborative artist. We're collaborating with the cosmos here. Not only does the cosmos not require Earth's complete destruction so that we can all have something better, but the cosmos desires very much to preserve Earth and to preserve her true nature. And the true nature of Earth is similar to that central core timeline. Just as each one of us has an ascension timeline, a central core version of our characteristics and personality and life experiences, that's who we really are. Earth has the same thing. Earth has a persona and a set of characteristics and desires and a way of being that was very distorted, and we were all living on the periphery. And we are now recalibrating and righting ourselves and realigning with that central core timeline. And when we do that, we are making all of our individual changes literally because Earth is changing herself. Like in my body, the cells of my body it necessitates their transformation if they still want to be a part of my body. because I am transforming as the inhabitor of this consciousness, of this body. The planet is inhabited by a consciousness, and her body is transforming. And this is part of the cosmic egg timer and is also part of her trajectory of consciousness. There's an inevitability about it. And each one of us has to make an individual choice about whether we are accompanying Earth on her journey, on her trajectory. And Earth, when I say that word, it's matter, not just the physical planet, the terrestrial rocky third rock from the sun that we're on. Earth is representative of matter, the physical world. Physical world. So birth of a new dimension, this means we are creating a new world that is the coming together of formerly divergent realms of spirit versus matter. So, here we are in this dualistic world. Mars is in the dualistic world. Jupiter's in the dualistic world. All of the galaxies are in the dualistic world. When we transform into this world of unity, where polar opposites become part of the same structure, and we resolve that duality, we create a new form of matter, and it's a new form of matter that responds directly and instantaneously to thought or spirit or energy, and it doesn't just exist on Earth. It exists everywhere. So if you fly to Jupiter, now Jupiter is made out of this new form of matter. And if you fly to a different galaxy, now this other galaxy is made out of this new form of matter. This is what I meant by Earth is like a petri dish growing an antidote to resolve a disease that is spread throughout many, many places. And the disease is duality. And it has to do with these space races who use technology versus space races who do not use technology, even though that is a very rough distinction. Basically, I would encourage everyone to connect their consciousness directly to the stellar network, to become a part of the consciousness network of Christ consciousness, to embody divinity on Earth, and not to utilize any intermediaries, no religious intermediaries. These are all thought structures. No saints, no Jesus, no Jehovah, no anybody that is embodied with arms and legs and a face and a name. Go for pure abstraction. Go for spiritual beings that are beyond description. Not a man with a beard and a long flowing robe, or a lady with a blue veil. And I'm speaking about who you contact telepathically, who you are consciously connected to, and to please cultivate and interact with beings who resonate with love. Love is not just an airy-fairy new age ideal, it's an actual tone. And you can perceive that tone with a feeling in your heart. You know when it's real love when you feel that feeling in your heart. So keep on tuning into real love, embodying the divinity of who you are, and connecting to the divine consciousness network. This is how we give birth to the new dimension. Thank you so much. Please continue to join me. We're giving birth. It's happening.